My second video I'm going to do on Southern Desert Men's Facility. Before walking in there, I felt pretty nervous because it was a men's facility, so I knew it was going to be totally different from a woman's facility. While we were waiting in the lobby, I found out that there was a fight in the yard that needed to be controlled and detained before we entered the prison and started our tour. So while we were waiting for them to do that, I was talking to our correctional officer who was going to give us the tour, and she was talking about all the different subcultures in prison, mainly regarding the gangs. And I thought that was really interesting because when an inmate does enter a prison, they have to join a gang for their self protection. So I thought that was interesting because you have no choice if you want to be safe. So when we walked in there, it was much larger than the women's prison. There was a lot of different buildings and a lot of it's a different layout. So we were walking around and there was an area for gardening for the men that want to practice their religious beliefs while gardening. And I was really impressed because we're in the middle of the desert and they have no shade and they're able to grow a garden. So we were walking around and there was a welding facility and a car restoration facility. There were inmates working on those different things, and to be a part of that club thing, were they have to be on good behavior and they have to show that they deserve to be there and use their gifts accordingly. There was also a schooling unit that the men were able to get their GED or high school diploma, and they were able to become educated while in prison. There was also a healthcare facility that included nurses, dentists, and doctors if needed, and they took care of their inmates by making sure they stay healthy. Then we moved on to the segregation unit, and prior to going in there, they were telling us that it's a little rougher in here and that it was going to be louder. We walk in there and they were really loud and they were banging on their cell, cat calling, mean mugging us through the little window. But they are supposed to stay in there for 23 hours of the day, and they get to go outside for 1 hour of the day, but they are still in a cage, so they don't really have much human interaction except yelling through the cell walls. And so I think that we were their entertainment of the week because they were thrilled, and they were definitely trying to intimidate us and have power over us behind a cell. So that was really interesting. So that was protective custody, and protective custody is defined on page 190 as a security level status given to inmates who are deemed to be at risk of serious violence if not afforded protection. And you don't necessarily have to be just a danger to the general public. You can be scared to be in prison, so then they automatically put you in protected custody, which is interesting because who would want to stay in a cell for 24 hours of the day, but whatever for safety, I guess. And then so also on page 211, I thought our correctional officer that was giving us a ride was a perfect example of a convict boss officer, and that is a correctional officer with a keen understanding of a convict logic and socialization. And she definitely maximized her control over her assigned post at all times, and she came in with a serious attitude and getting ready for business type thing so that people don't walk all over her. And I admired it because she is a woman and the men respected her just as everyone else, and I think that's really important. So I really enjoyed the men's facility. I got a lot more understanding of the differences between the men's and the women's. I think that everyone should do it, and it was great.